They called it consumption because of what it did. It consumed you, your weight, your strength, your breath, until there was almost nothing left. By the early 1900s, tuberculosis was one of the deadliest diseases in America. In some communities, it was responsible for nearly 1 in 10 deaths. People didn't just get sick, they wasted away. Pale skin, sunken eyes, a cough that never stopped. And sometimes the cough became so severe that it produced blood. It could last months, sometimes years, and there was no cure. By this time, doctors understood something terrifying. Tuberculosis spread through the air, through coughing, breathing, proximity, which meant if one person in a household had it, everyone was at risk. So families were told to do something almost unthinkable. Separate. Windows were kept open, even in winter. Dishes were kept apart. Contact was limited. And in many cases, the sick were sent away. If you had money, you might be sent to a sanatorium, a place built around a simple idea: fresh air, rest, time. Patients slept outside on screened porches, even in the cold. There was no cure, but there was hope. But if you didn't have money, there was another option: the county infirmary. In Butler County, Ohio, officials had been discussing a dedicated tuberculosis hospital as early as 1910. Buildings were proposed. A proper facility was envisioned. But what they ultimately used was something else. A large stone building on the infirmary grounds, built in the 1850s. 2 stories and a basement. 7 cells upstairs. It had once housed the county's insane. It had a name: the Pest House. Inspections often painted a reassuring picture. Sanitary conditions. Patients separated. Improvements underway. Even electric lights added. On paper, it looked like progress. But the outcomes for many of the tuberculosis patients at the infirmary weren't good. And this wasn't just a disease for the old or infirmed. It took people in their prime, like Earl Higgs. He was 24 years old, born in Brookville, Indiana. He lost his father when he was just a child. He grew up moving between family members, trying to find stability. By 1913, he had made it to Hamilton. He had work, a job as a stenographer, a step forward, a life beginning to take shape. And then he got sick. He was sent to the tuberculosis hospital at the infirmary, and he died there. But Harry Higgs was not forgotten by his loved ones back in Brookville, Indiana. When he was laid to rest, people came from miles away to attend his funeral. He had built something: connections, a life that mattered, even if it was cut short. Tuberculosis could come for any age. William Hertel, 45 years old and deathly ill. He once had something different: a marriage, child, a home. He worked as a laborer, tried to build a life. But somewhere along the way, things unraveled. There were reports of violence, a quarrel that turned physical. His wife filed for divorce, citing cruelty and neglect, and eventually it was granted. By the time tuberculosis took hold of him, he had lost much of what he once had. And when he arrived at the infirmary, it was already too late. His condition was so advanced, he wasn't even admitted to the tuberculosis hospital. He died right there in the infirmary. And then there was Howard Moore, an orphan. In 1910, he was living in a children's home. By 1915, he had aged out and was living with an uncle in Riley, Ohio. Then he got sick. He was brought to the infirmary in February. And by April, he was dead. Just 2 months. A newspaper recorded it plainly. A 17-year-old orphan dead of tuberculosis at the institution. 3 lives. 3 completely different paths. A young man just getting started. a man who had lost his footing, child who never really had a chance, all ending in the same place. In 1926, reports surfaced that conditions at the infirmary were deplorable, that people were suffering. An inspection followed. The conclusion? Everything was fine, at least officially. But by 1930, the truth was harder to ignore. Tuberculosis patients were being kept in the basement. Poor ventilation, unsanitary conditions, the exact environment the disease needed to spread. Floors were worn. Basic upkeep had been neglected. One doctor gave it a name that stuck. Poorhouse Hill, not a place of healing, a place of last resort. Tuberculosis exposed a divide between those who could afford care and those who couldn't, between proper treatment and whatever was available. They called it consumption because it didn't just take lives. It consumed futures, families, and any chance at something better.